we were today being Sunday, we discuss Bhagavad Gita. We were discussing sixth chapter. In that, there were two questions. Arjuna asked two questions at the end of the sixth chapter based upon dhyana. So when you do nididhyasana, two things. One problem we encounter is that the mind is not cooperating. The concentration which Bhagavan Krishna talks of is not possible. Because he says, yoyam yogas tvaya prokta. I just review the 2 or 3 shlokas and come to the present one. He says, Krishna, Bhagavan Krishna, you talked of this yoga of concentrating the mind in one place. This is very difficult, is almost impossible, because of the very nature of the mind, that it is turbulent. Chanchalam means its very nature is turbulent. Okay? Chanchalatvat means it is restless. Okay? Turbulent, restless is okay. The very nature of mind is restless. Therefore, it is not possible to maintain a steadiness of the mind. Concentration means steadiness of the mind. It is not possible to maintain, to keep the mind steadily in one place. Steadily means stiravagi. Steadily in one place, it is not possible to keep the mind. Because by very nature, mind is restless. And pramati means violently shaking, called pramati. Pramati, what does Shankaracharya say? Let us see. Pramati means pramathana sheelam, pramatnati shariram indriyani cha, vikshepamiti vikshipat paravashi karoti. Mind's nature is pramati, means it is violently disturbing. Not only mind is restless, it disturbs the sense organs also. See, this is very strange nature. The mind not only it wanders away from the aim. When you try to concentrate and do vichara, not only mind doesn't stay in vichara, it not only that, it disturbs the sense organs also. Doesn't allow the sense organs to remain. It makes the sense organs also restless. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ, ಪ್ರಮಥನ ಶೀಲಂ, pramatnati shariram indriyani. It violently oppresses, shakes body and sense organs, and paravashi karoti, makes them helplessly subjugated. Means they get subjugated by, that means mind has got its own ragadvesha. All this happens because of raga and dvesha. Mind has got a strong raga and strong dvesha. These strong raga dveshas make the sense organs run after the objects. It makes the mind to think of the objects. Even if you don't want them, your mind is forced to think of the external world alone. And when you start thinking of them, mind gets worked up. It gets disturbed. And this is how the mind does it. Therefore, what can we do for these things? Therefore, controlling it is, bringing it under control is very, very difficult. As difficult as holding the wind in our fist. Is it possible to hold the wind in our fist? How difficult, you know it. Because it is the very nature of the wind to move, and to holding such wind in our fist is as impossible as that. Therefore, to this question of Arjuna, Bhagavan Krishna replies, Asamshayam Mahabaho Manodurnigraham Chalam. He says, Arjuna, what you say is right. It is very, very difficult to bring the mind under control, make it steadily remain in one job. To remain concentrated in one place is really difficult. Yet there is a way, there is a knack. If you simply forcibly want to do, it won't happen. But there is a knack of doing it. What are they? Two knacks he tells them. Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. One is abhyasa, second is vairagya. Abhyasa means one should do. We all should do every day some practice of meditation. That means meditation is giving an opportunity for mind to remain concentrated steadily in one place, not just waver unnecessarily. Whether you want it or not, mind by its very nature wavers, wanders. By its very nature, mind is restless by its nature. It wants to keep on changing. That's why you see the many people, particularly this modern culture, encourages lot of restlessness. See, modern civilization depends upon our weaknesses only. It doesn't want people to be very, very peaceful, resting, concentrated in one thing. No. If you are restless, unhappy, you express your restlessness by going to picnic, by watching the films, by buying things. They want a lot of weaknesses because of the weaknesses you become a slave of many things. As a slave, either you go to, see, buying things has become a fashion. Have you seen that? In those days, markets were less and people would buy what they need, very few things. Only few people, rich people, go to far off towns or cities and once in a while, once in a month or 2 months or 3 months, and buy 1 or 2 things. Other people would just look at them and forget it. These are unnecessary. But nowadays, everybody must have money. Everybody should go to market every day or at least weekends. Weekends go to market and buy, not because you need them, but because mind is restless. Even buying becomes a habit. Okay? Addiction. Modern civilization wants you to have addictions, weaknesses, get tempted by things. And because of that, you work hard, make money and buy them. Either go to picnic. Did we have so many picnic spots in those days? People would go rarely. There was not much picnic and there were some festivals once in a while and people go and enjoy. And then, because people had mainly, the life routine was a very good discipline. The routine of life at home was a full of joy because they would do it sincerely as a dharma. Daily duties, they have to do it. When you do them, your laziness goes away. Your mind becomes stable. You have a faith in it, some Shraddha Bhakti. Looking after your elderly people and children, and then if friends come home and talk to them. So this itself was giving a very good discipline, very good dharma. Nowadays, home is only no home at all. No more home is a home. Home has become a simple residence, a tentative residence, that's all. Just to go and sleep and rest for a while, that's all. It doesn't have that sacredness of dharma, a place of dharma. So more often they just go and indulge in pleasures. They encourage. Everything is like this alone. This is a culture, this is an anti-spiritual culture. Anti-yoga culture, anti-karma yoga, anti-dhyana yoga, anti-bhakti yoga, anti-every yoga. Isn't it? That means they don't want you to be really live in peace and joy. Peace and joy comes with spirituality. If you are spiritually contented, contented means not a physical contentedness. Spiritual contentedness means a deeper joy of your sadhana, your vairagyam, your understanding, your inwardness. The joy of inwardness, the peace and joy of inwardness. That inward, if you are inward, you become a deep person. Your values are different. You become a man of values. You relate to life, you relate to world, and everything becomes sacred for you. You start seeing the beauty and joy of divine everywhere, all over the world. And your joy is different. They don't want that. They say, if that is there, if everybody, more people live like that, nothing will work. We want more material things to be produced. More material circulation. People should produce, buy and enjoy and throw them out. Even if you don't enjoy, throw them out. In these things, what happens? First is the nature suffers because you have to destroy a lot of nature. Lot of nature. First thing. Socially, people have to, first thing is nature is destroyed. The second thing is people become over-engaged. People become so busy, working, lot of working, lot of competition, lot of desires pushes you to work. You see how people are working. They have no time for any other thing in life. Work and make money, work and both husband and wife early morning go and then come late in the night. Still that money is not enough. Why? Because make the life costly. Life becomes costly. And you have to work harder. And this hard work is combined with competition. And competition, working hard, tension, that is creating a lot of physical and psychological problems. Out of restlessness, you end up eating anything, unnecessary things, overeating, and eating the wrong food. Because you eat not for appeasing hunger, but for out of restlessness. Naturally, you fall sick. Okay, mentally tensed up, physically fall sick, environment is polluted, nature is destroyed, environment is polluted. Food and everything is polluted. Society also, all this is because of ambition, materialistic life. They say civilization means only people should be pro-civilization. Pro-civilization means anti-spiritual, isn't it? You should be anti-spiritual. You should be restless. Restlessness is the foundation. Therefore, don't give them values. Don't give them culture. Culture and values are anti-civilization. Okay? Culture and values are anti-civilization. Modern civilization, I mean. Therefore, don't talk of man-woman roles. They don't teach you. Follow values and discipline, how to be a good husband, how to be a good wife, how to be a good father and how to be a good mother, and how to be a good family member, how to be a good member of a society, how to be a good person in your caste, how to be a good person in your religion, Hindu religion, how to be a good national member, I mean a citizen of a country, how to be ultimately a good human being of the whole world. Okay. All these responsibilities, values, broader thinking, all that, don't give them, they get spoiled, don't teach them. Allow them to live as they like it. Then if they fall sick, come to us. If you have a problem, come to us. If you have a problem, fall sick, come to doctors and then get lot of tested and testing. For every small thing get tested. Okay? Spend lots of money, 1,000 rupees is nothing these days. Lakhs and lakhs of money. Tens and thousands of money. This is a physical problem. Then everybody must fall sick and everybody must have and go to gym. The gym creates another problem. Gyms also creating. They use them again to destroy people, their culture, their values and everything. Then the mentally tension up. Once tensed up, then the marriage relationship also go away. Just you look at anybody, attract everybody. The other side you give them attract anybody to anything, no value, nothing. Just attraction alone decides everything. your parents, your values, your individuality, your long life, nothing. Tentative attraction, immediate attraction, tentative attraction. Attraction overpowers everything, decides everything. You break everything and go. This is what is a modern civilization. Okay? Values, some means making life itself as a yoga is prohibited. Because they don't say that, but nobody wants to talk of it. Don't talk of spirituality, don't talk of peace of mind. Don't. Of course, in India, there is a little bit. Still, you see little people talking about this values, some culture, some discipline, some living as a peace and content. They're talking of that. Deeper joy, but it is less and less because more and more we bring. That's why you can see even within, from compared to villages, cities are more civilized, means materialistic. Villages are also gradually happening. They are making the life of other people who want to live a spiritual life more miserable. They can't live a simple life. A man, nobody who wants to live a simple life can afford to live in this society. You must work hard, you must run, you can't have a house, you can't have anything. Unless you must be a runner along with them. Unless you are a participant of the race. Okay, this is another race. Unless you are a racist means, I'm just jokingly, racist means you are a participant in this running race. You are a participant in this running race, you have no life, you can't live. They are creating such an atmosphere. Nobody is questioning because you are not allowed to question. The education system, the media, the books, they mold your thinking in such a way that you have no time to think of any lasting values, any future thinking, immediate attraction, etc. They talk of big things, future and all that. All that is superficial. All that is only same selfishness they talk for future. What is the future? Again, same barbarism. Think of tomorrow for after 100 years. They want to prolong the same barbarism for 100 years, for 1,000 years. Therefore, they talk of that. Anyway, so here he says, it is true, the whole society is like that. Since we are born and brought up with that, mind carries the same samskara. But if you are a Vedi, if you are a Vedantin, if you are a yogi, if you want a real spiritual growth, then don't go for it. Okay, once you realize it. These people are more in India. I tell you, many foreigners are coming only to see that India carries that most ancient culture. Still, in spite of Western influence, the desperately our politicians, our intellectuals, and certain organizations are trying to impose. In spite of all this imposition, still we carry that old culture, because still that some element of our ancestors remains in our heart. So we read some spiritual books, we are exposed to them. We have got many gurus in the recent 19th, 20th century. Gurus, and we have got ancient gurus like Bhagavan, Krishna, Rama, Vasishtha, Vyasa, Shankaracharya, and we have ancient gurus and then recent gurus also. We are exposed to them, we read them. Because we understand, because some Purajanma Punya is there of Hindus compared to others. In spite of so much of fast influence of Kali Yuga, still I feel it is a wonder. Kali Yuga is coming upon us very fast and strongly influencing. Still I find there are some very good people, very really spiritual people. In spite of such an aggressive Kali Yuga, still we retain that spiritual mind. Amazingly, that's why I can say India is not an ordinary country. In spite of this Kali Yuga, still it is spiritual. There I find still many people listening to it, want to follow, want to do some japa, some meditation, some thinking, some inward thinking. Because worldly pleasures is to nothing, it is superficial. Go to the depth. There is something deeper life. Okay. Therefore, he says, there is a knack of. What is that? It is true, it is difficult, but there is a knack of doing it. Abhyas, one is a practice. Daily do some practice. Take some time. In those days, they told Pratah Kala, evening Sandhya Kala. Sandhya Kala, Pratah Sandhya and Sayam Sandhya is a really ideal time. That time is such a thing. As the Sandhya Kala comes, I tell you, there is a mystery in the Sandhya Kala. Early morning, 5 to 7, or even 5 to 6:37, or even evening also around 6 to 7:30, or even 5:30 to 7:30, around the evening 2 hours and morning 2 hours. That time, 1.5 to 2 hours. As the time comes, you can see mind naturally becomes relaxed. It becomes automatically some spiritual. That time, you make use of that time, your mind also gets into that mood of spirituality. Even if you are tired, you sit just on the chair, your mind gets into that mood of spirituality. Do some japa or meditation, whatever sampradaya, whatever way you have yogic meditation, bhakti meditation, or whatever you have, or prayers, or reading some shloka or something, whatever you do, but do it with a sincere heart, with an inwardness, do it. Therefore, abhyasa. Daily, that's why don't waste your pratah kala and pratah sandhya and sayam sandhya. At least half an hour, don't waste that time. The time is, I tell you, is a blessing. I don't know whether I am used to Indian climate. I know about India's sunset and sunrise, pratah sandhya, sayam sandhya. How these, do they exist, pratah sandhya, sayam sandhya, in other countries? And that sandhya period, sandhya kala, is it really like that? I have no idea. I have to ask some foreign visitors of India, our NRIs who visited foreign countries. But our Indian pratah sandhya, sayam sandhya period is a really beautiful period. Whether it is there in Europe and America and other countries, Australia, I don't know. We have to ask them. But sandhya is a very lucky that India has got all these periods, whatever Shastras talk of. We have got pratah sandhya, sayam sandhya. Luckily, our nature is also conducive to our spirituality. Therefore, being in India should not waste our life and time and conditions. The very Indian land, Indian climate should not be wasted without doing any spiritual sadhana. Everybody must have some little sadhana, follow some tradition, some guru, whichever you have. Okay. Follow whichever you guru, without being fanatic, with all openness. Try to do some japa, dhyana, meditation, something, and practice something. Okay. That's always good. That gives you inwardness. Once you get inwardness, you are really free, liberated. Your intellect becomes liberated, emotions become liberated, your sense organs also don't get attracted hereafter to the worldly things. It becomes really joy. That joy, I tell you, is invaluable. You can't pay. No amount of money is equal to that. No amount of money, even crores of money, is nothing compared to that inner joy you get. Okay. So partly you learn from books and teachers. They give you some twist, some turn, some guidance. But again, you have to do yourself. But while doing, we don't know where we are going, whether are we heading or not, doesn't matter. You try to be relaxed. Relax and face yourself. Be with yourself. Try to enjoy being yourself. So here, inwardly, there are certain samskaras. Okay, there are certain outgoing tendencies. What you call that, old tendencies and samskaras. You have to detach your mind. That next comes vairagya. Vairagya means that old habits, old relationships, old attachments, whatever experiences you had, you lived with people, all those samskaras, all those emotions, relationships, they remain deposited in our mind in the form of samskaras, impressions. Now we have to empty the mind of those samskaras, because samskaras are useless. Memory is good, I tell you. Memory is good. Memory cannot be erased. Memory is different from samskara. Remember that. Whatever we have experienced, we have seen, we have known, we have gone through, good and bad, all that remains a memory. Memory is good because memory serves as a knowledge, as a past experience for your future life. Memories are good. But along with memories, there are attachment, identification. So that identification, attachment, emotional and etc., so that has to be removed. Those samskaras have to be removed, because samskaras of no use. Samskaras really hurt us, harm us, they destroy us. We don't need samskaras. We need just memories are enough. We can take decision and live for future. There are two levels again, samskara. Samskara means the quality, samskara can be talked of in two ways again. The quality of mind is one thing. Quality means, tamasa, rajasa, satvika. A pure quality. The qualitative mind is also in a way samskara. But that qualitatively good mind is not a problem. Let us have that mind. Qualitatively, mind should be peaceful, open-minded, thinking, deep thinking, creative thinking, all that is good. And deeply watching inwardly. Inwardly, it should be capable of observing the self, observing the mind and the thoughts of the mind, emotions of the mind, and remain detached with it. All that is good. So the quality of mind being high is good, that the sattvika tendencies we call them. It is not tendency, but it is a sattvika level. That is good. But the other experiences, individual personal experiences of enjoyments, experiences as an egoistic experiences of good and bad, and then pleasures, money and power, status. See, the money, power, status, pleasures, all these are in association with ego. All these are experiences through ego. So, that egoistic experiences of money, power, pleasure, status, all these experiences based upon ego, they also leave samskaras. Those samskaras must be erased. Okay? Those samskaras must be erased because they are unnecessary. In fact, they are the only trap. They only force us, enslave us, and they direct us, control us, and they make us, they are really enemies. Because those samskaras make us behave against ourselves, as enemy to ourselves. We don't know how we are. We become enemy to ourselves because of those wrong samskaras. If we can erase them, that is vairagya. Vairagya means learn how those samskaras are really wrong. And then your relationship, the world will change. All people, your family members, society, everybody are really divine. Whole world is divine. Your society is divine. Your job is divine. And your family members are divine. Ultimately, your own body, mind is divine. Everything is Ishvara. Okay? That ego-based relationship changes the world. Ego-based relationship is one way, but here when the ego melts away, then you can see your body becomes divine. Because you have no identification with the body. You have no identification with your sense organs, your mind, your brain, your intelligence. All that looks like is a gift of Ishvara. Your brain is working, your thinking is a gift of Ishvara. It is Ishvara is giving those thoughts to you. Your emotions also becomes pure. You feel that they are coming from as a gift of Ishvara, as a blessing of Ishvara. You can feel the very noble feelings, noble thoughts. You can feel them, they are all coming as a blessing of Ishvara, blessing of Bhagavan. You can see if you happen to meet your friends, you feel them, it is a Bhagavan's blessing that you happen to meet some people. Any people, meeting things. You go to your job is also Bhagavan's blessing. Then all your world, relationships, everything becomes divine. Only if you stop looking at them through your ego. Ego-based relationship brings certain experiences and leaves the samskaras. Okay? Brings certain egoistic experiences and leaves those egoistic samskaras. And they are our enemies. They make our mind restless. And they make our mind function against our interest, our real spiritual interest. Okay. So those things, it is really painful to remove them, but there is a way. You have to be in the company of sadhakas or sadhus. Sadhu means advanced sadhakas. Be in the company of them. Derive continuously inspiration from them. Because inspiration and practice, these two are important. You need a continuous inspiration, encouragement to live in that spiritual mood of relaxed mind, very contemplative mind, not emotionally, violently react. not get attached to things and people, and not get attracted to simple, superficial, worldly pleasures. Okay. So this needs a certain strength. The strength comes through inspiration. So therefore, be in the company of sadhakas and saints and such people. Even from a distance, you can imagine, I tell you, your gurus and mahatmas are there all over the world, all over the cosmos. Even mentally, you think of those mahatmas, they'll give you company. Whomever you think of your guru, or even mahatmas, acharyas, siddha purushas, they are there all over the world, all over the cosmos. So at another level, deeper level, they exist. You mentally think of them. They give you company. They give you inspiration. They give you strength. Then with that strength, you have to do little practice also. Of course, practice is necessary. Deriving the inspiration, using the inspiration, and practice, both should go together. Okay? The inspiration from them and your own effort, both should go together. You think, for example, Ramana Maharshi's, you visit it once the place. There are many, I'm just giving one example. There are many, many places. Many acharyas, many pithas, matas, ashramas are there. Okay. You just go there. Once you just stay there a few hours, your whole mood is different. Because there is a powerful energy field, it is there. Afterwards, you go away. You come by a car or bus or train, anything. As you move away, even if you move away for kilometers, you feel the same vibrations. For kilometers, you feel the vibrations. You feel that you are still in that meditation hall alone. So that is the thing we have to use, that inspiration. Mentally you think of them, so you feel that you are in that ashram. You are in the temple or ashram or whatever, or Himalayas, whichever you are used to. You just feel that. So that helps you, encourages you, do that. Therefore he says, Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grhyate. Arjuna, it is difficult, no doubt. It is difficult if you try to do it in your normal way. But it becomes easy if you do it in a way, if you adopt the way prescribed by the Shastra, by Gurus. Gurus have prescribed the way is, don't fight with your mind. By mind means what? With your willpower, just controlling them, don't do that. That doesn't work and it doesn't happen. With your willpower, if you try to suppress your desires, your mind and samskaras, just with your willpower, you can't do. You can't do, and it doesn't work also. Maybe a little bit of will is okay, just superficially for a short while. But the real strength should come from the deeper inspirations and your practice of meditation. Okay? Vairagya and Abhyasa. Vairagyena cha. Therefore, Abhyasa, daily a part of meditation. That gives you real strength, because subconsciously it checks. Subconsciously you get strengthened by your meditation. Meditation of inwardness. More and more your mind stays with your inner strength, your inner Sakshi, inner Atma, leaves out the mind. It leaves out the mind and stays with your inner self. That is Sakshi, your pure consciousness. More and more your mind turns towards your consciousness. Mind loses mindness. That means mind loses its worldly mindness. Mind loses its worldly nature of mind. It loses. More it loses, more mind becomes so light and superficial. It doesn't control you. If you want to use it, you can use it. When you don't want to use it, mind remains there without disturbing you. It just lives there. You can leave the mind and remain relaxed and quiet. So the mind doesn't pose a problem, because the mind has to be freed from its past samskaras of attachment, identification, ego and all that. Okay, therefore, Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grhyate. So spend time more and more in meditation. For vairagya and meditation, two things as I told you, continuous practice and also continuously deriving the inspiration. Continuously derive the inspiration. Inspiration abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grhyate. These are simple knacks. Okay? You are not applying will and fighting against it like running against current. You don't have to struggle so much. don't have to struggle so much. Because mind runs because out of its habit it goes. It doesn't know what to do. It just goes away. But if you nag, you see, very intelligently, very lovingly care for it, mind gradually comes back and remains relaxed. So mind has to be tackled in such a way as if you are handling a baby. If you threaten the baby will stubbornly do the same thing. Just nicely you show something else, it leaves out and then comes away. Simple, just like a baby. Therefore, there is a knack of doing it. Abhyasayanat. Therefore, concentrate on abhyasa and vairagya. Vairagya is not forcibly suppressing with your will. Forcibly doing it. Some people say you need a will to control. It's okay, that's a way of talking. A little bit of will is okay, but not excess of will doesn't work. Only will is not enough. You need a deeper inspiration and deeper inwardness. Then once you go more and deeper into yourself, then the mind becomes easily surrenders to your Atma. Okay, this much I think we have discussed partly. This question, asamyat atmana, but one thing, Arjuna, it is possible. With a knack if you do it. And if you keep doing it day by day, you feel you are more relaxed, more under control, more steady and more self-control comes easily. And one thing you remember, without controlling it, someday you must control. There is no way. Either today or tomorrow, even after 1 year, 10 years or 20 years, even after 100 years or after 2 janmas, you must control. There is no way. There is no alternative to that. You can't say, can I live with all my disturbed mind? Can I have spirituality? No. Remember that. Controlling the mind, making it relaxed and pure. Make it pure and relaxed and inwardly. There is no alternative to it. You must do it. There is no way. And it is possible. 2 things. It is possible if you do with a knack, and it must be done. There is no alternative. Okay? You must. If you keep this in mind, that alone really gives me joy. The control of the mind alone really gives me the real freedom, real joy, real strength, real spiritual strength. Then you will be prepared to do that. All other things only disturb you, give you more unhappiness. Therefore, don't go for them. Just, they are enough now. Once is over, goodbye to all worldly life. Worldly life means ego-based pleasures, ego-based money, power, ego-based achievements, ego-based money, power, status and pleasures. Ego-based achievements also. I have achieved that, I have achieved this. Ego-based achievement may give you some kind of ego satisfaction. But that is not the spiritual strength. Okay? You can achieve, but the achievement should be as a karma yoga, as a service to Ishvara. As a devotional service to Ishvara, you offer him. So in the devotional service also you make achievement, but that achievement is that I have really surrendered to Ishvara. It is Ishvara's greatness. It is Bhagavan's greatness. I have given away everything to him. He alone does everything. I am only just serving. So that is my achievement, is that I am nothing, I am nobody, I am just serving. This is a great strength. This is a great achievement. That is a real satisfaction. But ego achievement, you think of your power, your capacity, your achievement, all that thing. So the ego-based achievement, the ego sense of achievement is different from the karma yoga's achievement, karma yoga's state of mind. Ego-based achievement, it gives you superficially some kind of satisfaction, but inwardly, deeply, it holds you, attaches you. It incapacitates you for your spiritual growth. Okay? Therefore, these 4 or 5 you have to give up. That is real Vairagyam. Vairagyam is no money, no power, no status, no pleasures. You don't consider them as valuable at all. First thing is, values for these 4 things should go away. They are not valuable things. They are there in life, okay, but they are not to be considered as something valuable. They are not valuable. Okay, then mind becomes detached. then that old samskaras have to be gradually wiped out, gradually you have to wipe out. Every day you do it, mind really wipes out. Okay. Next question Arjuna asks, okay, I try to do that. I've been trying. It's a hypothetical question for Arjuna, but it is a question of all of us. It may look as an hypothetical for Arjuna, but it is a question pertains to all the humanity, all the sadhakas. We may feel one thing, ayati shraddhayopeto, next question 37th. Ayati shraddhayopeto yoga chalitamanasaha aprapya. So I try to do. Arjuna says, okay, I try to do it. If I achieve the total concentration, complete detachment, complete concentration, and get my Brahma Jnanam in this life, I am lucky. I'll become totally free from samsara. I know that I am Brahman. But in case if I don't become successful, if I am not successful in really gaining Jnanam, completing my what you call concentration, my inwardness and steadiness, if I don't get complete steadiness of mind, though I have been practicing, but the circumstances are not all the time same. Sometimes the external situation may force you, disturb you, doesn't allow you to do meditation and disturb you. Sometimes your own inner samskaras are so strong, your prarabdha is so strong sometimes that it may don't allow you. If you are a sannyasi, you give up all our worldly enjoyments, worldly karmas, punya karmas, concentrate, you give up all punya karmas because you don't do any puja, gija, etc. Dana is not there for sannyasi. Puja is not there for sannyasi. Parayanas, pujas, all celebrations, going to mandira, all that is not necessary. Going to mandira, going to temples, visits, punya kshetra, all that is not there. So he only leaves everything, concentrates only on dhyana. Such a person, if he successfully achieves Brahma Jnanam, falsifies his mind and Jagat and stays as Brahman, okay. Suppose due to some reason, some factor, he is unable to maintain the steadiness of mind, mind gets disturbed and is unable to do nididhyasana. A time comes. It may come, not always, but it may come. Because of many factors, as I told you, due to prarabdha, due to strong samskaras, due to some external situation, something. Then what happened? He cannot complete his nididhyasana. So he doesn't gain complete jnanam. That means completely falsifying the world he could not do. Then he dies. What happens? This is partly Karmakandi talking. Karmakandis generally think that unless you have to do some punya karma, rituals, because a Karmakandi thinks more than meditation. More than meditation, Karmakandi thinks of karma, rituals, puja. Okay, puja, parayana. Okay, puja, parayana and certain other things, rituals alone he thinks of as a punya karma. He doesn't consider dhyanam as something a spiritual sadhana. Because these karmatas, rituals, think only rituals, puja and then those things alone. But he being a sannyasi, he has given up all his rituals. So engaged only in meditation. And that meditation has not given him complete result. It is not become a complete. Aprapya yoga samsiddhim. He didn't get perfection in his yoga. That means his yoga has not become perfect. It is halfway. Then what happens? And he dies. What happens to him? Kachin ubhaya vibrashtaha. Will he become lost in both the ways? Lost in both the way. That means ihaloka he gave up all worldly pleasures. And paraloka he has not acquired punya for paraloka. See, punya will give you next to better janma and next to swarga, sukha. Now you have given up your punya karma. Two things when he becomes a sannyasi and takes to meditation. He gives up worldly pleasures, he gives up karma and bhoga. Okay, he gives up karma and bhoga. When he gives up karma and bhoga, karma gives you punya, bhoga gives you worldly pleasure. Now he became a sannyasi, gave up worldly pleasures. So this life is lost because he has done all sacrifices and could not enjoy the worldly life. Now punya he could not earn because that makes him happy in the next janma. So for the punya he doesn't have for the next janma. This janma he gave up all bhogas, all enjoyments. So either way he lost. And then meditation has not become successful. Successful means it is not completed because it was lacking something. It needed some more time, some more meditation, but he couldn't do because some disturbance came and he was unable to do that and got blocked. It means his mind gets blocked and doesn't proceed. He tried to do howsoever much he tried to concentrate, tried to do meditation, mind becomes dull and dumb. It is unable to get that awareness, that consciousness, it is unable to get it. Mind is still becoming a dumb and protesting, resisting. Some kind of tamas, some kind of dullness comes in here. Or sometimes becomes violent. Either mind becomes violent or becomes tamas, dumb. It is not able to stay in your consciousness. Then what can you do? Kachinno bhaya vibrashtas chinna brahmiva nashyati. Then his janma, so here talking of a jiva. Now will that jiva be totally lost? Neither in this life nor in the next life. After these things, what will he go? Will he go to Naraka only? Because he has not enjoyed this life, not earned punya. Because he has given up all rituals and punya karmas he gave up. Since he has not done punya karma, so next life also he doesn't have Swargaloka or he doesn't have a better janma. So what will be his fate? So in this path of Brahmajnana, he will be neither there nor here. Neither there nor here, Ubhaya Brashta. Neither there nor here. This is my doubt really haunting me, Bhagavan Krishna. This doubt is really haunting me. What will happen to me? You are advising me to exclusively devote my time, be dedicated to meditation alone by giving up rituals, giving up enjoyments. Oh my God, what will be my fate? This doubt you have to clear me because I have no way of knowing it. Why no way of knowing? Because nowhere I have not heard what will happen to such yogi. I have not heard this in any Upanishads or in any Veda. Have you seen that? In Upanishads and Veda, what will happen to Yoga Brashta is nowhere stated. Nowhere stated, you see. Nowhere in other Shastras, nowhere in the Upanishads, the fate of Yoga Brashta is talked about. Yoga Brashta means an incomplete yogi. Yoga Brashta doesn't mean fallen yogi. Okay, don't translate it as a what you say that fallen yogi. It's not a fallen yogi. Literally, it looks like a fallen yogi. It is not a fallen yogi. He has not completed his perfection. He has not completed his yoga sadhana. That's all. It's an incomplete yogi. Instead of calling it fallen yogi, okay. No fallen yogi, but an incomplete yogi. Not a fallen yogi, but incomplete yogi. Because of his incompleteness of yoga, what will happen to him? This Yoga Brashta, taking this word in Telugu people, there is one person who comes to me often. He changes the word Yoga Brashta into Brashtu Pattina Yogi. In Telugu he says, Brashtu Pattina Yogi means a totally fallen, shattered, fallen, destroyed yogi he talks. It is not destroyed yogi. Brashtu Pattina yogi, he calls in Telugu like this. Is not totally lost. It only shows he could not complete it, he could not make it. That's all. But largely he has done it. So to this reply, Bhagavan, he says, hey Arjuna, what are you talking? You think that karma and bhoga alone is a real happiness? Bhoga gives you happiness and karma gives you future happiness. Future, punya gives you future. I say, you are thinking of ritualistic punya alone is punya. There is a better punya, appa. Yoga sadhana, vairagya itself gives you better punya. Do you know that? Vairagya, detachment and dhyana itself is a better punya than your ritualistic punya. He says, this gives you better punya than ritualistic punya. Remember that. Ritualistic punya just a minute, I note down. Yogic punya. Yogic punya or punya of vairagya. Okay, detachment. Yogic punya is higher than ritualistic punya. Remember that. Because ritual gives you some punya, no doubt. But more than ritualistic punya, the very detachment, because the heart is pure. You think of sarvabhuta hite rata, good to everybody. You think of good of everybody because there is no cursing, there is only blessing to everybody. Mind is relaxed and pure. Therefore, that mental sadhana is there. That gives you higher punya. Therefore, a person who is detached, doesn't hate anybody, blesses everybody, sarve jana sukhino bhavantu. That sannyasi who avoids, who gives up all his enjoyments, who gives up ritualistic punya, but pays attention to his vairagya and yogic punya. Vairagya and yoga. Yoga means meditation. Therefore, that vairagya sadhanam, punya of vairagya and punya of yoga. Punya of vairagya, punya of yoga is highest punya. Okay. Therefore, he says, straight away Sri Krishna answers. Time 52 minutes. I think we will finish it in 1 or 2 minutes. Partha naivehana mutra vinashastasya vidyate. Arjuna, he will not be lost at all. No loss at all for him. He will never be shattered, never be destroyed. Okay. No destruction for him. Because nahi kalyana krit kaschid durgatin tata gacchati. He is a kalyana kritappa. He is doing good. He is a doer of good. Kalyana krit, a doer of good. What is that kalyana? Meditation and vairagya are higher than karmas. Because they are all mental rituals. Much deeper rituals. Kalyana krit. The very vairagyam and dhyana are higher things. They'll give you, he will never attain durgati. That means he will never attain a bad state. Why? Papya. Then what will happen to him? Prapya punya krutam lokan. But he has not done punya. Doesn't matter. His punya is not. He will attain the punya krutam loka. He will attain the lokas of punyatmas. What is the punya krutam loka? Like Brahma loka. A nididhyasana, a person who follows nididhyasana, he will get the punyam of equal to upasana. See here you see. Nididhyasana will give you, in incomplete nididhyasana will give you punyam equal to upasana. Okay. Nididhyasana fetches punyam equal to upasana. Ahangrahopasana. Therefore, you will get See, one who does ahangrahopasana will get to go to Brahmaloka. Therefore, your nididhyasana will give you punya equal to upasana. Therefore, he will go to Brahmaloka. Nididhyasana, Vairagya itself is an upasana, equal to upasana. Therefore, it is not losing punya, but it is getting a higher punya. Therefore, nididhyasana, though it is not a ritual, still it is a punya. That is the thing we have to understand. Nididhyasana is not a karma and upasana. Okay? Vairagyam and nididhyasana. Vairagyam and nididhyasana are not karma and upasana. Okay? Vairagyam and nididhyasana are not karma and upasana. But they'll give you punyam equal to karma and upasana. Understand? Vairagya and nididhyasana are not karma and upasana, yet they give you upasana punya phalam equal to upasana. Therefore, you will go to Brahmaloka. After going to Brahmaloka, you live there for some time. Then again you come back with a better, you come back, but you come back not as an ordinary man. You will be born in a better life. Okay? Papya punya krutam lokan ushitva shashvati samaha enaguttade shuchinam shrimatange. So again 2 options are given. Either you go to Brahmaloka and come back and be born in a very good life, very, very cultured family and good life. Or you may not go to Brahmaloka if you are staunchly interested in Nididhyasana, Vedanta, Jnanam alone. You won't go to Brahmaloka at all and directly you take to Nididhyasana alone in the next life. You will continue it. Okay? This I think we will discuss in the next class. I think with this it is over. But there are in the next life, how will be his next life? Regarding that, there are one good important things. How will be your next life? How will be his next life? He gives 1 point. And therefore, he advises you to continue in your Nididhyasana. Yogi is always better than Karmi. Okay? Okay. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat.